Associated Press tonight confirms that a second patient whose transplant insurance coverage was reneged on by the state of Arizona has died. There are two death panels in this country, the imaginary one with which Republicans scare the stupid, and the real one they ignore because GOP Governor Jan Brewer is running it. Our third story, the White House pushes back against the newest fake death panel witch hunt, while Arizona's lawmakers fight back before Brewer lets more of her citizens die. First, the New York Times reporting today that the Obama administration would revise a Medicare regulation to delete references to end-of-life planning as part of the annual physical examinations covered under the new health care law. Those end-of-life planning references had spawned the lie that the new health care reform law would create government-run death panels. Before another political and perhaps legislative fight, the White House removed the language, though a spokesperson for Health and Human Services told us, quote, "Nothing in this action prohibits patients having voluntary advanced care planning." Still, that did not stop one of the main instigators of 2009's PolitiFact Lie of the Year from crowing. According to health insurance industry paid liar Betsy McCoy, this is, quote, "victory for American seniors." Perhaps that's because end-of-life planning appears to still be viable via Medicare. And then there is Arizona, where Monday Governor Brewer was inaugurated to her first term as an elected governor of that state.
I can tell you from experience that there's nothing like an election to make the office feel a whole lot better.
Guess who's not feeling better? Viewers of this program over the past few months have been introduced to several of the roughly 100 Arizona citizens who have been denied the opportunity for life-saving organ transplants because Jan Brewer decided the transplants and the people were optional. Governor Brewer's cuts to the state's Medicaid program took effect in October. Since then, Democrats and the victims of the decision have repeatedly called for the governor to convene a special session of the state's Republican-controlled legislature to act to save people's lives. Brewer has refused. Yesterday, the Republican State House Appropriations Chairman said he would review the cuts to the transplant program as part of the budget hearing for the state's Medicaid program early in the 2011 legislative session. We're joined now by Arizona State Senator Kyrsten Sinema, Democrat from the Arizona 15th District. Senator, thanks for your time tonight.
Well, Keith, it's great to be here with you.
Today, your incoming minority leader, David Shapira, issued a statement about this, and it said University Medical Center in Tucson has confirmed that a UMC patient who was awaiting a transplant but was refused the life-saving procedure because of Republican budget cuts has died. The hospital spokesperson told the Associated Press that hospital officials say that the death was most likely a result of this scaled-back coverage, the insurance coverage, from the state of Arizona for transplants. Are we seeing the beginning of the nightmare scenario that we feared at the end of last year?
That's absolutely right, Keith. In fact, many of us said time and time again during the budget process last spring that cutting these transplants would indeed lead directly to the deaths of these individuals. There were 99 Arizonans on the wait list for these transplants. Now there are only 97. 2 have died.
The Republican House Appropriations Chair said, as I just quoted him, that he's going to take this up early in the session. What do you know about when and how this will get corrected, if at all? Read the temperature there.
Well, we're not quite sure what Republicans plan to do, but I can tell you this, Keith. On Monday, which is the opening day of our legislative session, I'll be introducing 2 bills. One bill that restores the funding for transplants, and a second bill that closes a tax loophole for big businesses in order to pay for those transplants. You know, Governor Brewer has been saying that we just can't afford these transplants. She put forth a challenge to Democrats to find a way to pay for that. So I found a way. And I'll be offering that legislation, and I fully expect my Republican colleagues in both the Senate and the House to take up that legislation and debate it seriously.
You've been in touch in the past with these 97, as you point out, remaining members of that kicked off the transplant list. Have you been in contact with any of them since the news happened today?
I heard from one of the gentlemen, a gentleman whose wife was actually on your show. He was a gentleman who had actually received a donor. A family friend passed away and offered their liver to him, and because of the cuts, he was unable to get that liver. That liver went to someone else who had health insurance. So I did hear from that family today, and they are grieving, as are, I am sure, many Arizonans around the state, for this unnecessary loss of life that's due solely to the capricious whim of Governor Brewer Brewer and legislative Republicans.
That'd be Francisco Felix, obviously.
Yes.
As somebody who's been vocal about this issue from the beginning in Arizona, how does it sit with you that the only death panel that's being talked about on a national level, and not just in the Fox Newses of this world, but in some supposedly reputable news organizations, is this fake one that Republicans made up out of whole cloth to get ordinary people to act against their own self-interests?
Well, you know, the sad thing about that, Keith, is it takes a very real issue and politicizes it. So while individuals across the country are pretending that there are death panels in the federal congressional legislation, right here in Arizona, we actually see them every single day. Jan Brewer is just refusing to look at the options that are available to her to easily refund this program. You know, Keith, a lot of people don't know this, but the program costs only $1.4 million a year, which in the context of a state budget is very small, very, very small. And so this really is a capricious decision made on the part of Governor Brewer and legislative Republicans.
Arizona State Senator Kyrsten Sinema, a great thanks as always. Take care.
Thank you.
We remind our viewers again that if you want to help any of the Arizona families we've had on this program, or anybody at all, we mentioned Francisco Felix, you can donate to the National Transplant Assistance Fund online at ntafund.org.